Hello, welcome to Sam Gus Tarot and 31 Days of Tarot, day number 8. Day number 8 is about which tarot books were read in 2019. And honestly, I'm not going to share every tarot book that I read. I'm just going to share kind of the best of, if you will. And the best stuff that I got the most from. I don't think there was a bad tarot book I actually did read. Even some of the basics that some people complain about, like the Los Scarabeo encyclopedias, I actually enjoyed very much. But there were books that had a much bigger impact on me, and I'll be sharing those with you in just a moment. First off, if you don't know what the 31 Days of Tarot are, it is a community driven project led by Ethany, and I've left a link down below in the description to her YouTube channel as well as her Facebook group, the Tarot Readers Academy Facebook group. And she provides prompts to the community every January for, like, I think the last 4 or 5 years. And each day is a different prompt to discuss something tarot related. And then she encourages everybody who wants to participate. And it's a great way for the community to get active, get to know each other, put out there our own thoughts and opinions on stuff, as well as to say hi. So, hi. If you yourself or someone has been doing the 31 Days of Tarot, I've been encouraging you to leave links to your videos down in the comments below and say hi. I make a point of watching as many videos as I can on the 31 Days of Tarot. And if you leave anything in the comments, I will for sure watch yours. Even if you don't, chances are I'm going to still watch your videos, but again, I'll make a special point too. So what books were read that I appreciated? Well, one is an old classic. It's just a new edition. Matter of fact, it's the 35th anniversary edition of Tarot for Yourself by Mary K. Greer. And this is a great workbook that helps you explore the tarot and tarot deck that you're working with. And I remember using probably about at least 25, 30 years ago this book, and I decided I wanted to get the new edition and go through it again. And for whatever reason, actually, I'm a little amused myself. Instead of a real serious deck that I thought I probably chose, well, actually, it is a serious deck, but at the time I didn't consider it a serious deck, was the Dark Fairy Tale Tarot. And I decided to use that book while going through the walkthrough. And right off the bat, it showed you what an impact that tarot had. And I want to read something right off the bat here. Let me find it real quick. So one of the first exercises this book has you do is take a look at the symbology of a rose, and then talk about and it's actually an introduction as a sample exercise, so it's not even an official exercise. And so it says, roses appear frequently in a majority of tarot decks. When you have completed your intuitive writing exercise, but not before, look through your cards at the way the rose has been used in your deck. So I got written down here 1023, the rose, various notes to me what the rose represented. The Roscurian rose from like the Thoth deck. Thorns on the rose, which led me to think about the old book by V.C. Andrews I read as a kid, If There Be Thorns. Red petals, which led me into thinking about vampirism. And of course, there's the LARP for vampires called the Masquerade. And then obviously roleplay. For those who are into any type of kink, may remember a BDSM book from the 90s that was called Screw the Roses, Give Me the Thorns. The roses represent protection, rosewood. Matter of fact, one of my tarot decks is in a rosewood protective box. You've got the silk roses for texture, softness, luxury. Rosebuds for new beginnings, birth, sowing, growth. So this is what I kind of played with. And then the next day, I actually drew as the card of the day from the Dark Fairy Tale, Zero, the Fool, who is holding a rose. And not only is this an awesome card to begin a study on, But it turns out that in the Dark Fairy Tale, it's the only card I can see where the rose was actually present. So that was the type of impact right off the bat that it had, and it was a random draw. It wasn't a, from the top of the deck of a new deck. It was, from a random draw. So that actually had a lot of impact, which is I thought was really really neat. Anyway, another book that I looked through because I was wondering if I wanted to get back into reading professionally. Now, the last time I read professionally was back in the early 90s, like from like 91 to 94. And I used to read the Tarot at a coffee shop. And I would set up shop, and for $5, I would read your draws. And I would have anywhere from 3 to a dozen customers a day doing that. And it was in a college town called Chico, California. So if you happen to remember a weird guy, younger man, reading you tarot in the coffee shops, hi, still alive. But anyway, I did decide possibly to look through it in online resources like Fiverr and stuff like that. Honestly, it hasn't really taken off yet, and that's fine. No skin off my nose. And there's a lot of great readers out there already. So, and I'm not looking to it as a getting into it as a way to pay my bills more than it's something I've always enjoyed doing, right? Anyway, so the book was called Best Tarot Practices. All you need to know to learn the tarot, but this particular book actually talks about various spreads and how to do readings for other people. And so this was a interesting read and kind of took me off to that like direction of looking into things like that. But great book. Next one is an old book, and if you ever see me, I don't do a lot of online talking like in Facebook groups and stuff like that. Every once in a while I might like a meme, right, or comment here or there. But one thing I'm always stepping forward and saying is, what book should you start with? And this one, hands down, I was actually honored that I didn't realize when I suggested her book that she was actually on the same thread or Facebook page as I was. And so I was quite surprised when she actually said something about thank you. Anyway, that's Benebell Wen and the Holistic Tarot. This book is just chock full of information, mind-blowing on how complete this is. And I always recommend to people, if you're only going to get one book on the tarot or start off with at least your first book, let it be this one. There's a reason why this book is so highly recommended, not just from me but from others. Yes, you have some great authors out there. Matter of fact, we've already seen one like Mary Greer. Barbara Moore is another great author. Tom Benjamin. I mean, there's a lot of great authors, but this book here, as for someone starting off or just has limited resources where they only need 1 or 2 books, this needs to be on your shelf. Plain and simple. Great read and lovely lady. I actually missed out on her tarot deck, unfortunately. And when she says she's not going to put out another edition or another printing, Venable, if you're watching this, please, please, please do so. I would love to be able to get a copy of your deck one day. Thank you. The next one is a guidebook, and it's probably one of the best guidebooks I've ever come across, and it's the Deviant Moon Tarot. And what's great about this book, first off, I'm a little kid, so show me pictures and big color plates and I'm yours. But what really makes this guidebook stand out that I love so much was he doesn't just talk about the meanings of the individual cards, but he actually tells you the story of how he came across his art style and why he chose the symbolism in the art that he chose and why. And it's very in-depth, and it gives you a whole new level of appreciation for the Deviant Moon and the meanings within the cards. By now, if you've been watching any of my stuff, you know that I'm deeply influenced by symbology. I put a lot of stock in that. And so understanding where the symbols come from and why something was chosen adds a new layer of meaning, a new layer of understanding. And this particular guidebook does that in spades. The next book and I can't say I really read it per se, and you'll understand why when you see it. It's the Tarot Correspondences book. And this is a great reference and resources book. So when you pull a card and want to see all the various associations correspondences with it, this is the book to pick up next and look and study. And I mean, everything from Kabbalistic entry of life to Zodiac. Uh, I mean, just anything and everything. Uh, great book. T. Susan Chang. If you don't have a copy of this, I would strongly recommend it. Matter of fact, I shared with you the Holistic Tarot just a minute ago. If there was a second book that I think anyone should get, in that second book being the second book, this one, I think gives you a lot and the most insight. Now, this one isn't a good guide per se, like Tarot for Yourself would be, or something like that, or even like the Holistic Tarot. You do have to kind of get in onto your own about what type of correspondence you're looking for and why. And that will help you decide which chapter to go to, which pages to go to, etc. So maybe a little bit more for the intermediate user, but the Holistic Tarot, if you read that, if you didn't know anything else about Tarot, by the time you got done with Holistic Tarot, you would be past beginner and into intermediate and be ready for that book anyway. So the last book, not necessarily the last book that I read, of course. Again, read several other books, including some books on the Thoth Tarot, which, now I mentioned that there is a really couple good mentions, especially the Quetz book. But anyway, maybe that'll be a separate video. But the other book that had a lot of impact on me this year was I finally bit the bullet and got the Encyclopedia Tarot, Volume 1. I do intend on getting the other 3 volumes eventually. They're not cheap, but I've decided that they're going to be worth the expense. And wow. So it's written by Stuart Kaplan of US Games. And this goes to everything you would ever want to know about the history of Tarot, where it came from, how it went. One of the most fascinating chapters was Chapter 5, the Visconti and Scorza families and their heraldic devices. So, and it's crazy. I don't think you need to know this information to understand the Visconti decks or Marseille's deck, but to learn that, that there were some heraldic devices that were put on the cards, and they actually had very specific meanings for the family, was quite interesting. And it not just goes over their heraldic devices, but then how these were located, the various variations of the Visconti Scorza deck over the centuries. And then, of course, an entire chapter based off of the ins and outs of the political family of Milan's interest and how and who they were. And in essence, you find out that the Visconti were the rich and powerful because of their rich and political intrigue. But then you find out the Sforza family was the military might of Milan. So now you combine these two things, and they were an unstoppable force. And there was a reason why they were so powerful. It makes stuff like the Bush and Clintons, if they were to ever combine forces, right, and follow along here just for a second. If Bush and Clintons were to intermarry and become a powerful family, they would still have nothing in comparison to how powerful the Visconti and Scorza families were back in the day. But to kind of give you an idea of how much wealth and power they had is why I kind of invoked those two names, just to give you an idea of the direction you're going in. But anyway, there's 4 volumes. The other 3 are either out of print or hard to find or in between printing, so they cost quite a bit. But this one can be had, I think, for I think I paid $30 for it. But even if you needed to invest a little bit more into some of the other volumes, I can't help but strongly recommend this. Matter of fact, it's because of this book why these 2 books, the Tarot Fundamentals and Tarot Experience, and there's a 3rd book that I plan on getting to complete the set from Lo Scarabeo. It's got some great information in it, don't get me wrong, but at the same time I was getting these, I got this. And this is so scholarly and in depth, and is kind of the thing that I like about it, that it overshadowed those other books very easily. Which, unfortunately, I don't mean to take away from those other books, because they're good too. And they're a fun read. And you also get a lot of different perspectives in those books. So, maybe it's the positive optimistic in me. I'm always trying to find something positive about everything. But in these books here, you get a lot of, and it's a beautiful book, by the way, beautiful binding. I always forget whether it's embossed or emboss, where it's like raised surfaces. So I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, but raised surfaces, very, very pretty printing. But you have people like Sasha Graham, Marcus Katz, Barbara Moore, and several others that have contributed to these books. So getting the multiple perspectives is awesome. But there are also, fairly short and precise chapters. So again, I don't want to take anything away from it, because now that I'm talking about that, it makes these books that much more important too. So just in a different way, I guess is the best way to put it. So I would recommend this book first, but this one does come in a second. So there we go. Anyway, thank you for joining me for this episode. I'm not participating in every day in the 31 days of Tarot. I think I'm doing 17 out of the 31 days. And a lot of that is because I got something to say, I guess, on those 17 days, where on the 14 days, I don't have as much to say, if anything. So there we go. And that's the beauty of the 31 days of Tarot. You can participate as much or as little as you want. So again, hit that like button down below if you liked my content. Subscribe if you want to watch more of my videos, and hit the notification bell icon so that you can come see more when it comes out. And by all means, leave your comments down below. It is probably not uncommon that I'm going to make mistakes, whether it's pronunciation or actual cold hard facts. And if you see that I said something wrong on those measures, by all means, please let me know down below. I am still very much the internal student. You will notice I drink a lot, but I promise you it is not beer. It is just diet sodas. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, have a great day. Goodbye.